Welcome to the State of the Buccaneers podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Pfefferkorn, and this is the biggest and only fan-run podcast of the East Tennessee State Buccaneers. We'll get right back to you after the tune. Welcome back to the State of the Buccaneers podcast. Tonight is the first episode I've recorded in a couple weeks. I didn't get an episode done last week covering the Appalachian State game, and I haven't recorded one yet this week to cover the UVA-Wise game, but I'm going to cover all of that tonight. I did kind of a on-location episode of State of the Buccaneers. I may be recording some content tomorrow as well. This is just the main episode, and that'll be sort of a secondary type thing. But tonight I have a great episode of State of the Buccaneers. No guest again. I hope to get some more on, more guests on here. I just haven't had time. I haven't reached out. I'm trying to get people on. It's a scheduling issue, but hopefully some of you listeners, anybody that's listening, anybody at all can appear on the show. But it is a big week in ETSU athletics. A lot of big news, lots of big news this week. And probably our biggest game, a non-conference foe at home we've ever had. In the second-ranked North Dakota State Bison. They are pretty much the Alabama of FCS, but we'll get more into that here in a minute. But other than that, that's all I wanted to say for as far as the intro, what content, and there'll be a little bit of basketball news here at the end. It's going to be a shorter episode, other than the preview. I'll go as long as my voice lets me, because it's just going to be me tonight. I'm going to try to share some stuff on the screen. Sorry, Spotify listeners. But yeah, I guess we'll get started. We'll start out recapping the App State game 1 of Trey Lamb's coaching career here at ETSU. It was about what I expected for FBS team. Playing in the good FBS team. Week 1, we had a lot of new faces, lots of new faces. There's only a few left from the Quarles and Sanders era, because that was kind of a weird transition, and now we're on our third coach in about 4 years. So, it's about what I expected. Final score, App State 38-10, Buccaneers 10. App State just dominated us. We hung in there for a long while into the third quarter. I was there. Of course, you saw that in my on-location video. We hung around, scored, kept the score close. We were holding them. App State fans were worried. They were worried at how ETSU was doing. That's about the best we could do, considering. Jalen King looked all right in his debut for us. Let's share this on the screen. Let's share my screen. Let's share App State. We'll share the stats here. I was going to try to do this tonight on this episode, sort of share the stats I'm looking at, but we had Jalen King 10 for 19 for 122 yards. He did a good job. He also had 17 yards rushing. Some of that was sacks. He got taken down. He did a good job at evading the sacks till late in the game when our offensive line was worn out. That's where App State really dominated us, was on the offensive and defensive line. Devontae Houston, 126 rushing yards and a touchdown, which was the craziest time of the game. I went nuts. App State fans are probably like, why did we let this? How did this guy get in here? But yeah, we look good from the rushing game. Cameron Lewis, 3 receptions for 47 yards. App State just has a phenomenal offense. Joey Aguilar, their running backs are good. They just wore us down, had better play calls. And then they had some excellent play calling towards the end of the game. It was a good first game for Trey Lamb, even though it was a loss. It should have been closer than the score. We shouldn't have let them score those 2 touchdowns at the end. I think where they got us momentum-wise was that bomb of a pass to start the game by Joey Aguilar on the broken coverage. I don't know who was doing the coverage, but yeah. Our defense held in there, did about what they should, but that's all I can say as far as that. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Good first game. But that's all I've got for week 1. Although it was kind of disappointing to see. I was rooting for App State against Clemson. They got smoked. I think that's just the difference in talent level. I think Clemson underperformed week 1 against Georgia. We'll see how Clemson does the rest of the year and how App State does the rest of the year. That might have hurt App State's chances at getting in the playoff, the FBS playoff. Northern Illinois, Memphis look really good. More on that later. They look more excellent. I don't think App State, they'll be a good team. They'll be a 9 or 10 win bowl team. But I don't think they will be perfect, so to speak. I think they're one of the favorites for the Sun Belt Conference. But yeah, that's all I got on that game. Wasn't too disappointed. Didn't expect to win. Good game. We hung in there. But yeah. Moving on, week 2, we took on UVA Wise. I'll show it to you here. I'm gonna share my screen again. Share my screen. We did what we should. It was a dominant performance all around over a D2 school. I know they're not a very good D2 school, but 61-0. I mean, that is the biggest margin of victory we've had since football came back in 2016, I believe. No, 2015. Yeah, it was 2015. I'm getting my years mixed up. I'm starting to get to that age where everything outside the last 5 years kind of runs together. 2015, we lost to, I was just looking at 2015. But it's our largest margin of victory since we came back. Largest margin of victory since we beat Chattanooga. 69-3, I believe. 69-3. Football history. ETSU versus Chattanooga football history. Didn't believe I. See, They should have the largest margin of victory. 68-7. Our last year before dropping football in 2003. Jalen King, he struggled a little bit with inaccuracy the first 2 games. He was 16 of 27, but the plays he did hit, he were touchdowns. Spread that defense out. I'm going to look at the box score here a little bit. We had a pick 6, I believe, multiple defensive score. Let me check. I'm going to look at the play-by-play. Um, yeah, we had a pick six, just dominated the game whole way through. Um, Jalen King had those 4 touchdowns. Geno English came in, played admirably as the backup QB. He was with Trey Lamb at Gardner Webb as well. I believe he started out at Florida State, but he looked good for a backup. He has to come in relief of Jalen King. Steven Johnson, the Bristol native that transferred from Charlotte, he was 3 for 3. So I'll be interested to see his development. Irby had 71. Foster had 62. Houston didn't have as much of a game, but I don't think he was playing as much. I think they were keeping him rested for NDSU. Torrey Lambert, touchdown. We've kept most of our running back room together. Adrian Johnson, he's been with the team. Don't remember his name as much in previous years. He had some playing time. Devin Ingram. Receiving, there was receivers. All these guys. Jonathan Burns, Ephraim Floyd, Cam Lewis, Xavier Galaditz, A.J. Johnson, the transfer from LSU to Gardner Webb to now ETSU. We just dominated the game all around. Good first home victory for Trey Lamb. Good confidence builder. I know some people wonder why we play D2 schools, but it's a part of the game. Money games are a part of NCAA football. And I'm not opposed to it, just as a warm-up game, especially for a first-year coach that's getting his team established, getting that team chemistry together. QB trying to find chemistry with his receivers, especially when we have 2 juggernauts on opposite sides of us. Of course, playing App State, and now this weekend, the North Dakota State Bison. That's all I can say about the UVA Wise game. I'm going to move on to our preview for this week's game, which kicks off tomorrow at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time for those of you in different time zones that tune in. I'm not sure how many of those we have, but I think most of them are around here on the East Coast. Maybe there's some Bucs that live out west or up north or wherever around the globe. If I have any global viewers, I'd be surprised. Well, unless they came to ETSU. But coming into this week, the Bison of North Dakota State. What more can I say about them? They are the dominant FCS program and have been for the past 15 years or so. They have built a juggernaut. They are that Alabama, the Georgia of FCS. They sort of took that title from the Georgia Southerns, the Appalachian states that have moved on to FBS. And this is probably the biggest matchup for ETSU at home. Outside of the playoff, that 2021 season, all those matchups were big. But as far as a non-conference opponent, this is it. This is the cream of the crop. At least till we move to FBS and maybe can get a ACC school or something if we move to FBS with all this craziness and get an FBS school to come here. They are the number 2 team in the nation currently, behind South Dakota State. They have a first-year head coach in, I forget, Tim Polasek. He was the offensive coordinator at Wyoming under Craig Bull, who started North Dakota State on this journey of becoming a juggernaut. Well, they were a juggernaut in D2 before then, in the old days. But yeah, Craig Bull retired. Their defensive coordinator got the job. Uh, what's his name? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on. Let's look up NDSU's former head coach. Blanking on his name. Matt Entz. He was the second or third guy of this NDSU run, third coach of the NDSU run. He went to USC to be the linebackers coach and I believe associate head coach. So they've had a change of staff, but they are very much a familiar team. Tim Polasek was at North Dakota State for years. Before that, following Craig Bull to Wyoming. So he knows the identity of the program, and yeah, not much change there. We of course played them in 2021 in the playoffs. Previously, I believe that's our only other meeting. And it was a tough game. 2021 was one of our best teams ever, but they made us look pedestrian. We lost 24-7, I believe, 24-3. Yeah. 2021, 27-3. It was worse than I thought. They just dominated us, or dominated our offensive line, and ran away with it. Their starting QB, Cam Miller, this year he's in his 5th year. He was the starter in that game, led them to a national championship. Remind you, their coach had won 2 national championships, and fans were not happy because they lost 4 games last year. That's what we're working with here with North Dakota State. They are the preeminent power of FCS. Most football fans everywhere are going to know who they are. They've produced NFL talent. You have Carson Wentz, of course. I know he's gone downhill. Trey Lance, who's been iffy, but he was a high draft pick. Christian Watson on the Packers. There's numerous names that were a product of the NDSU factory, which is what I got to call them. Cam Miller is the next in that line. You went from, what's his name? Brock Jensen to Carson Wentz to Easton Stick to Trey Lance, and now Cam Miller. All those guys. Cam Miller's likely an NFL guy. He is a stud of a QB. But just getting into the preview, talking about their season so far, North Dakota State, they started out playing Prime, Coach Prime, Colorado Buffaloes. Gave them a game at Colorado's place. Almost did their typical upset of the FBS school. Under average FCS school, takes them on, brings them in, trying to play a money game and gets beat. But NDSU isn't a money game. That's a barometer of where your program's at because they just have so much consistency. Cam Miller took off. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, and a 1 passing touchdown. Was 18 of 22 for 277. They just kind of dominated Colorado's defense. Here, I'll show you. I'm going to share. I forgot to share the stats for this game. Yeah, obviously, helped Colorado win was their elite QB talent: Shadur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn Jr. too. But North Dakota State, it's not just Cam Miller that runs the show. They run a split QB system, bringing Cole Payton in stretches. I think he's going to be their successor to Cam Miller. He hasn't played too much this year. I know they've been in kind of a QB battle. We will see what happens there. Typically, North Dakota State's known for their rushing game, just dominating the line of scrimmages on both sides. Their defense is insane. I think they had a lot of people out for this game. typically North Dakota State holds people down in points. Their defensive line was good. Their secondary did not look good like a usual North Dakota State team. I followed their rise to stardom. Ever since I followed them, they've had aggressive defense at both levels. So this game, I hope we can do similar things with the Trey Lamb's air raid. But yeah, they took on Colorado. Next game, they stomped fellow Tennessee school, Tennessee State, Eddie George's Tennessee State. Speaking of which, I don't know how much this is a barometer of North Dakota State's talent. Tennessee State's been kind of a mediocre Ohio Valley Conference team. So, and the Ohio Valley Conference has kind of been dying here recently. They've added a lot of D2 schools, average D2 schools, and have partnered with the Big South just to survive. So I'm not sure how much this actually means in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, Cam Miller dominated. Their running game took off. Shamar Brown, Cam Miller. They're back. I think there's one of their backup QBs, their third string. So NDSU's third string dominated Tennessee State too. Of course, the one thing that stands out to me here is Bryce Lance. That's Trey Lance's brother. He is their leading receiver. He had 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. So we're gonna have to cover him. Yeah. I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game tomorrow. That's all I got to say. It is. I think we have a chance. I do think we have a chance. I don't think North Dakota State is the same juggernaut they were in the prime of their run, where they were beating Bill Snyder, Kansas, Iowa State, all those Power 5 schools that scheduled them. I think they are a great team. They are absolutely a contender for the FCS National Championship. But I think they have a lot of flaws. Watching them on film, it's going to be a tough matchup for rookie head coach. Well, he's not a rookie, but a new head coach at a new program, and a sophomore QB. But thankfully, we're at home and not going on the road to North Dakota State. I wouldn't think we would have a chance in Fargo, to be completely honest. Although we do play them next year there, I believe. I think so. 2025, I believe we play them. Have a return trip. 2025. No, we don't play them next year. We play them we have a return trip in 2026. So that'll be a crazy game there. Yeah, I think we're going to. It might be a shootout. Either it's going to be a shootout or it's going to be a slog of a game, just like where whoever's defense holds who the best wins. I think that's ultimately what's going to determine it. I hope Trey Lamb is up to the challenge. I think he is. Through these first 2 games, we look like a completely different team. Just the way we beat UVA-wise, the way we played App State, I think we 100% have a chance. I hope Jalen King is accurate with his throws. I've been a fan of him so far. He's made good reads, good decision-making. That's another thing. We are going to have to win the turnover battle. We cannot turn the ball over to an offense that grinds out yards, runs clock, sort of like Iowa or a Bama or a Georgia, where they just play with you the whole game, and then at the end, you have no clock. That's happened a couple times in some of the games I've watched them in the FCS playoffs. More skilled offensively teams have better QBs, better wide receivers. So we're going to have to control the line of scrimmage, time of possession, turnover battle. Those three things are key, which we did against App State. Almost gave them a safety, but it was kind of questionable. But that was just running out of steam against a good FBS opponent, good school, good football school. Ultimately, I think it is going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. I think it's going to come down to those last few minutes, just like their game against Colorado. I think this is going to be one of the better games ETSU plays all year, closer games. Well, I wouldn't say better, but just close games, the closest games they're going to play all year. And, yeah, I think the home crowd, it's supposed to be a sellout crowd tomorrow. I think we're going to have we're trying to set the attendance record. Trey Lamb has been insistent on that. I think we're going to set the record for attendance. And, yeah, North Dakota State is a good school. Ultimately, my score prediction, I'm going to have us losing a close one, 34-27. I believe that's going to be my final prediction. I think is going to be an offensive battle. Whoever holds the most wins. And I think North Dakota State has a more experienced defense, but it's going to be a good game regardless of what happens. Yeah. So fun fact about tomorrow, outside of my score prediction, I will be tailgating all day. I'm not exactly sure where yet, but if you want to roll up and just say, hey, have a drink, have a beer. I do. We'll have beer and water. I'm cooking up bison burgers as well. I hope that brings up the intimidation factor if any North Dakota State fans come by. They will be there. I've seen them on their forum. Welcome them to Johnson City, but say, hey, I think we're going to win. Yeah, we gotta be that way. Welcome them to Johnson City. Give them recommendations on what to do after the game, places to grab a drink, grab a bite to eat, places to go if they're staying around for Sunday. Hopefully weather stays good. Weather's supposed to be good tomorrow, but you never know with Mother Nature in East Tennessee. But yeah, I think this is one of the biggest games we're going to have, period. It's going to be something we look back on. Certainly the biggest home opponent since we had Randy Moss Marshall in the 90s. We had Randy Moss, Chad Pennington, a whole bunch of different NFL talent that won the FCS title 1996. Oddly enough, that was also one of the ETSU's better teams when we went to the playoffs. Beat Nova, and then we got beat down by Montana, who is a similar school to North Dakota State. But I think the future of ETSU football is in good hands, and we look good so far this year. Go Bucs. That's all I've got to say on the football side of things. I guess I'll do a trivia question. I don't have it wrote out, but I'll just do a question and answer. I'd say when George Quarles was hired as ETSU's head coach, which NDSU coach was rumored in the running for ETSU's head coaching job? Was it A, Craig Bowl, B, Chris Kleiman, C, Matt Entz, D, Tyler Roll? Well, I'd say most people watching know the answer. It was D, Tyler Roll. He was He was NDSU's offensive coordinator for the last several years. He ended up going to – he was rumored for a couple head coaching opportunities. I think he was going to Tennessee State to be their offensive coordinator after the coaching change this past year. But he backed out, came back to NDSU, and then ultimately ended up at Iowa State to be their associate head coach or assistant coach and OC. He was about to come – he was high on the list of candidates, if you remember. You also had Jeff Fisher, but he didn't end up coming because he wanted to – I think there was something with his son. He wanted his son to be like a hot, prominent member in staff or something, or be on the team. I think he might have had an adult son. There was going to transfer. But I kind of wish we went with Tyler Roll just to see how it worked out. But now we have Trey Lamb instead of what they went with. I don't think I need to explain more because I've talked at it ad nauseum on this podcast. But yeah, that's sort of a quick preview of the North Dakota State game. Final score prediction, 34-27. I want to see your predictions in the comments below whenever this gets uploaded on game day. Come and talk to me about the game at my tailgate. I'll be more than glad to talk some Bucs football, talk any type of sports with you. But yeah, that's all I've got for Buccaneer football. Next topic is ETSU basketball. We're just kind of going to go – sorry, I can't get my words out tonight. Kind of going to go quick here. There's only a couple stories. They still haven't released the full schedule yet. We do have some more confirmed dates since the last time I recorded. I believe first thing, they announced a charity exhibition game this season against High Point North from the Big South Conference out of High Point, North Carolina. They were a 27-win team. They ultimately choked in their conference tourney. They should have been the Big South's representative. I think it was Longwood again this year, which is another interesting school. But it's a good barometer of where we are as a team. It's looking more and more like we're going to be the top dog in the SoCon this year. Yeah, I will be there. I will definitely be there because High Point is a good mid-major team. I'm sure they will be one of the favorites in the Big South Conference. Fun fact, the Big South Conference tournament is coming to Johnson City. I think that kind of opened some doors, and I think High Point wants to get familiar with Freedom Hall. But Freedom Hall is not going to be welcome to them this time, at least. So yeah, hopefully we get a win there. It's a preseason game. I know a lot of programs have started doing this the last couple years. My other fandom, Purdue, they had one against Arkansas. I believe they have one against Creighton this year. But it's a good thing to raise money for charity and just for coaches to see as a barometer for where their team's at. I know they've had secret scrimmages as well. I think this is kind of replacing that just so they're not secret and they're more public, becoming more public. So kudos to Coach Savage and Doc Sander for setting that all up. I believe those were the two that set it up, but I could be wrong. Yeah. Next thing, well, other scheduling news. We played James Madison, played Wichita State, UNC Charlotte. There's some other non-conference games we got. I'm going to go look. Let's pull up. It's unofficially, and this is the unofficial schedule. We've had a couple teams back out, but I think we should be getting close to having it finalized. Let's see. We will look. So UNC Charlotte, JMU, Wichita State play Elon at home. UMKC at a lot of teams have been releasing their schedule. USC Upstate at Davidson, Queens at home. Some schools that aren't going to happen: App State and Eastern Carolina. I think they're just tired of playing us. They're afraid they're going to get beat. They duck us once we get good, of course. But we got UNC Charlotte in replacement, so another North Carolina school. But that's since the official schedule hasn't come out. There's not a whole much more to talk about there. Yeah. And the last piece of news for Buccaneer basketball, about to say football there, but last piece of news, we got another huge commitment. First commitment for the class of 2025 class, I believe. Out of Harlan County, Kentucky. The 3-star prospect, Maddox Huff, just committed today to play for the Bucs next year. This is a massive pickup. He is a combo guard out of 6'3", 190 combo guard. I'm sure, I don't know if that's his exact height and weight, but he's rated as the number 3 Kentucky player out of Kentucky, behind a couple big-time Power 5 players. He didn't have as much interest from Power 5 schools, which is kind of surprising, but at the same time it's not, because he's from a more rural school. It's kind of like a Mac McClung or somebody like that that blew up right at the end of their recruiting process, because he went to Gate City. I'm glad he went. He's reached the heights he has. Hopefully Max Huff can be that for us. You had offers from Chattanooga, ETSU, of course, Eastern Kentucky, Morehead State, UT Martin, and Youngstown State. I'm sure he had more. That just was listed on 247 Sports. But a massive pickup. And he followed him and his dad already followed me on this account. So shout out you all if you're watching. And you can come on the State of the Buccaneers podcast anytime. I love discussing with ETSU players, current, former, whatever. Just talking about some ETSU sports and why we love ETSU. But that's a big pickup. Good start to the class. I haven't watched the film. I'll probably watch some film of him. And kudos to Brooks Savage for getting these underrated players out of areas that are overlooked, smaller schools. I know Mekhi Johnson came from West Virginia, and Gabe Sisk, he was a 3-star. Both of those were 3-stars that were underlooked by Power 5 schools. And I think Maddox Huff is going to be the same. Same type of player for us. Continuing to build that roster, build that core. I think that is all I have for tonight's show. I wanted to just do a quick preview show for the North Dakota State game. Let me know if y'all are going. That's all I have. Just a few quick final thoughts tonight. I do have this is kind of off topic, but I do have an NCAA Football 25 Dynasty. If you have an Xbox, there's open spaces. I'd love to get it to 32 teams. I'll put invite link or info down in the description. If you want to join, just let me know what school you want. Send me a DM, and I will gladly oblige. That's one of the final things. Continue to donate for Bucs for Good. Just follow me on all social medias. State of the Buccaneers. Listen to us on Spotify and watch on YouTube. recommend it. And also, recommend us to your friends and family. I just want to continue to grow this, make it more professional. I know it kind of looks unprofessional sometimes, but it's just me having conversations with you all. And I just love making content, love Buccaneer athletics. And that's all I have for tonight. Yeah. So hopefully this weekend goes good. But Godspeed, go Bucs, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good night.